Time to prepare for the next advanced dragon trial, and it is none other than High Mercury. So this video is going to tell you how to prepare for the High Mercury trial, but please keep in mind this trial has not been released yet. As the time of recording this, we still have some time to go before it's released. So some of this information may be inaccurate days from now, actually weeks from now. I may need to update this guide in about a month or so once the trial is actually released and everybody's had a chance to play against the dragon. And once we start getting clears in, we can see what works and what doesn't work, etc, etc. So this video may be out of date in a couple months, but it should still hold true for the most part, as most preparation videos go for the High Dragons. So what we know from this fight, also I just want to say that there will be timestamps in the description down below if you want to skip to certain areas. Say you just want to know adventurers to pick, dragons to pick, weapons to use, or Wyrmprints to use. There will be slots that you can skip to just to go straight there if you want to. Now, what we know from this battle is that the fight will be released on April 17th. So it's not out yet, it will come soon. And we know that the fight will inflict bog. It has been confirmed already. So that's what we know. Now what we don't know from this fight is we don't know the attack pattern of High Mercury. So that means we don't know what attacks are going to be there, when bog will be inflicted, because we know it's going to be bog, we just don't know when it's going to happen. And with that, means that we don't know what the HP and the strength thresholds are for this fight. As with most dragon trials, pretty much all the advanced dragon trials so far, both of them, both High Brunhilde and High Midgardsormr so far, have had an opening attack where your adventurer needs to be at a certain amount of HP to survive, and you also need a certain amount of strength in your team to actually kill the dragon. So we don't know what the HP or the strength thresholds are just yet, especially with the additions of double Wyrmprints. There's really no way for us to guesstimate what it will be right now, since there's so many possibilities with the Wyrmprints to survive or to deal more damage, etc, etc. We know that this fight will be in a super increased difficulty mode. We don't know what it is yet though, so keep that in mind while this video is playing. And like I was saying with the attacks, we don't know what the attacks are, but we can kind of expect some things to be in, just like how the current Mercury Dragon Trial, the normal one, has some attacks like a whirlpool and some bubbles that are around. We can kind of expect those obstacles, like little bubble obstacles, to something like that to be in the normal fight, because as with the Brunhilde fight and the High Brunhilde fight, there was Muspelheim. And with the Midgardsormr fights, there is him spinning around, and other moves from both of those fights. Those are just the main ones off the top of my head. So we can expect some things to be in there. Now, also, I just want to say, be sure you have your facilities maxed up as high as you can go. Your dojos, your wind facilities, everything, max them up. Even the facility that we got from the event, try to max it out if you haven't already, which it should be. If you're starting the game a little bit late, you probably won't have that wind facility. But there will likely be a rerun sometime in the future that you can get it, and we're not sure if that's needed to complete the Dragon Trial as of yet. We're still not sure, so please keep that in mind. Now then, let's get started with the meat of things. Let's get into the adventurers you will need to do this. Now, we know it's going to be a bog infliction on this trial, so bog resistant adventurers will be not necessary but highly recommended for me to you. I'm only going to be covering the bog resistant adventurers because at the moment we don't even know if it's possible to clear without bog resistance. It likely is, as with the other dragon trials, you know, Midgardsormr, you don't need a stun resistant adventurer, and High Brunhilde, you don't need a burn resistant adventurer to clear it, but it is recommended, especially for newer players. So the adventurers currently released that have bog resistance are Galaranzel, Linyu, Maribel, Luis, Lowen, Eleonora, Pia, Musashi, Kuhai, and as a free-to-play options, there is Ranzel. So there's a few 5 stars, a few 4 stars, and honestly, there is a large selection of adventurers compared to when High Midgardsormr came out and when High Brunhilde came out. There were practically no options to really go from to deviate from the current, like the meta at that time. Whereas this time we actually have so many options to choose from. So There's 5 stars like Galaranzel, Linyu, Maribel, and Luis to choose from, and 4 stars such as Lowen, Eleonora, Pia, Musashi, Kuhai, and Ranzel to choose from. Now, everybody will have Ranzel, of course, but Ranzel, specifically normal Ranzel, is highly outclassed by Linyu. Linyu beats him in practically every single way. I don't think there's any reason to actually bring Ranzel to this fight, especially with a Linyu there. So that is super unfortunate, but it was bound to happen. He's a free character. He's not going to be the greatest adventure to pick, of course. Other things to note: the only great healer at the moment from Wind Adventurers is Lowen, so that is likely going to be the only constant adventurer in the varying parties who actually clear. Of course, there's other healers off element that you might be able to pick and actually clear, but like I said, I'm only going to be going over the Wind Adventurers that are resistant to Bog. A thing to note with Lowen is he has 2 really good skills. So his first skill is a healing skill that heals and removes Bog. So that is a huge possibility to clear with non-Bog resistant units just using Lowen's first skill, just like how Thaniel can clear your burns, and how Verica can clear your stuns. Lowen can clear your Bogs. So that is something to note. Also, he has a second skill, which is a defense up and HP increase while healing you. So Lowen is a very, very good healer. So compared to the other times, well, actually Verica was a great healer, but Thaniel, definitely not too good of a healer. So thankfully this time around, there is a great healer in Lowen to be able to take on this Dragon Trial. Now, between the other adventurers, the best 4, I would say, to actually take on this Dragon Trial would be Galaranzel as a sword, Linyu as an axe, Maribel as a wand, and Lowen as a staff. I feel like those 4 would be your best bet to clear this. So if you have any of those 4, highly recommend training it up, 50 mana circling them, getting their weapons, etc., to get them ready for this. Also, it is not sure if we need to get 50 mana circles on the character to clear, but it is highly recommended, as it will help a ton with the co-abilities and the extra stats. Now, the 4-star options are not terrible by any means. They're pretty decent options, such as Pia, Eleonora, and Lowen. I haven't mentioned Luis at all. Luis is also a great option to pick as a bow. Eleonora is also a bow. She is, I would say, not as good as Luis, but she's still a great option to pick. Pia is the lance in this slot with Bog resistance, so she is great because she's the HP raise. If you have a team of, say, Pia and Linyu, you might even be able to bring a Maribel with a Strength Dragon, which we'll get into dragons later, but just throwing out some brainstorming ideas here since the Dragon Trial has not been released yet. So, like I said, we don't know if all these adventures are even viable. We're not even sure. We're not even sure what the team composition, if it has a certain way it needs to look like. Like, if you need to have a co-ability to raise defense or HP, we're not sure if that's needed as of yet. So there can be plenty of combinations and speculation. The only way to find out for sure, though, like I said, is to wait for the trial to be released. But those are the adventures to pick from, and I've said my recommendations. All of them will likely work, though, especially since they all are Bog resistant. Another one to make note of is Musashi as a blade. He has a team-wide strength up co-ability, which could be very helpful. And yeah, so those are the adventures that you can pick from and my recommendations. Next up would be to put a dragon on your adventurers. So the dragons and adventurers section kind of go hand in hand, meaning certain adventurers will need certain dragons. What I mean by this is, if you're running a healer, you want an HP up dragon, because your healing is mostly determined by how much HP your healer has. So for Lowen, you would want to run an HP dragon, such as Garuda, which gives your HP up by 60%, or Straybog, which gives your HP up by 45%. Both of those will likely work. Of course, Garuda will be much better. Unless you do not have her max unbinded, then Straybog will probably be your best bet. Now, we're not sure if Streetbog will be enough to clear yet. Like I said, it hasn't been released, but it likely will be good enough since Daniel currently only has a 30% strength dragon with Poseidon. So I'm sure a 45% strength dragon in this dragon trial will work, but like I said, we're not sure yet. For the every other adventure, pretty much a HP only dragon is not recommended. It is recommended to run a strength up dragon. Now, for your range, there's a difference between ranged units and melee units because their defenses in-game are different. Now, melee units' defenses in-game are at a amounts of 10, while the ranged units in-game defenses are at amounts of 8. And what this means is that ranged units will take more damage than melee units. So, with your ranged units, you're going to want a split dragon between HP and strength, and currently the only split wind dragon with HP and strength will be High Midgard Stormer. So you would need to max unbind him. Likely a non-max unbinded HMS will not be good enough. So you will likely need to max unbind HMS to be able to use him. He gives your HP and strength up by 30% when max unbinded. Also, I forgot to mention, these are all going to be max unbinded numbers. Non-max unbinded numbers, you can look them up, but it's recommended to not run a dragon unless it's max unbinded, especially in this dragon trial. So, the split dragons is only High Midgard Stormer with HP and strength 30%. You're going to want to put him on your ranged adventures, like I said, such as Luis and Maribel, just for example. You're going to want to put the High Midgard Stormer, same with Eleonora. Might as well just say them all. And for every other melee adventurer, you're likely going to need a strength up dragon, purely strength up. And the ones that we currently have in game are Zephyr, which gives your strength up by 60%, Long, which gives your strength up by 45%, and adds 55% to the modifier damage on critical hits. There's also Rock, which is your 4-star. I forgot to mention Rock and Streitbog are your 4-star dragons. Everything else is 5-star on this list. Rock gives your strength up by 45%. So those are all the dragon options. For your melee adventures, you're going to want the highest amount of strength that you can have on him. So whichever dragon you have max unbinded that gives you the highest amount of strength, you're gonna want that on your melee adventurer. While your ranged units, you're gonna likely need a split between HP and strength. Except for Lowen, you're gonna want pure HP. That is the dragons. Of course, like I said, the trial has not been released yet, so you may be able to run, say, Maribel with a strength dragon, a pure strength dragon, which will net you more damage at the cost of HP if she's able to live the opening hit. Like I said, there's a lot of flexibility with double Wyrmprints added, especially with in terms of dragons that you can use, because there are Wyrmprints that let you get your defense up, or say skill prep up, which lets Lowen get his defense buff up, or etc, etc. There's many options, so there's variations between these, but I'm just saying the most common and the most recommended ones as of yet. You can play around with it. If you can live the hit with a strength dragon on your range character, please do that, because that's going to help tremendously. Also, I might as well say this since I forgot. Between Zephyr and Long, they're both very, very similar. If you're trying to decide which one to use between Zephyr and Long, say you have 4 Sunstones, and each of them need 4 Sunstones to get max unbinded, I would recommend Zephyr. Zephyr is just all around better than Long. However, Long is still very good, especially with an adventure that has high critical chance. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, on to the weapons. So the weapons that I will talk about, all the standard 5-star wind elemental weapons cost 200 royal jade insignias and 200 tablets of the respective weapon type, with 7 twinkling sands, and then a couple other various materials that are fairly easy to get. So keep that in mind with all these elementals. The standard 4-star wind elementals cost 50 jade insignias, with other various materials that are pretty easy to obtain. And the void weapons cost materials that you gather from the void battles. So just keep these in mind while listing all of them out. And using weapons other than the standard 5-star elemental will likely decrease your DPS, and it's highly recommended to just go with the 5-star elemental. Even if it doesn't have a skill you like, it's going to get you the most damage, and it's probably going to be the best, but it's up to your resources, up to what works for you. Now then, the void weapons offer the 5-star void weapons offer skill prep plus 50% and broken punisher damage plus 15%. So 50% skill prep and 15% broken punisher damage. These include the sword, the blade, and the axe. There's also a staff void weapon, but this one offers skill prep plus 50% and HP 70% equals healing potency up 8%. So instead of the broken punisher damage, you get extra recovery. So out of these, I would honestly recommend not building them for the most part. The only one I would even consider would be the staff, but they are all options. The staff, I would say, is maybe the best staff out of all 3 of the staffs between standard 4-star, standard 5-star, and void weapons. There's a couple other void weapons, but they're really not worth it, especially the wind ones. So those are the void weapons. Next up are the standard 4-star elemental weapons. There is the sword, which heals the user and applies regen on the user for 15 seconds. The blade, which grants defense up by 20 or 25% to the user. Dagger, which restores the user's HP as a skill, of course. These are skills, while the void weapons are abilities. Just thought I would throw that out there. Axe, which gives you defense up 20 or 25% as a skill. Lance, bow, and wand all have an attack skill. And the staff has a strength up skill by 30 or 35%. Next up will be the standard 5-star elementals, with the sword defense up by 25 or 30%. The blade, dagger, and axe all have an attack skill. The lance has an AoE heal skill. The bow has a crit rate up skill. The wand restores the user's HP skill, while the staff has a recover potency up by 15 or 20% skill. So these weapons, the ones I would recommend making for each of the respective weapon types, like I said, staff, the void weapon is probably going to be your best bet, but also the 5-star elemental will work. I do not recommend the 4-star for the staff. For wands, I would recommend going, honestly, either of the 4-star or 5-star will work. Probably 5-star will be better just because you get to get more strength on your adventurer, but both of them will work. Bow, of course, both of them will work, just like the wand. Again, exact same scenario. The lance, also very similar scenario, but I would recommend the 5-star because you may need your AoE heal. With the lance, you might need it. It's, of course, like I said, the battle has not came out, so we're not sure. Would recommend with the 5-star one, though. Axe has probably the, I would say, the best 3 weapons out of the available options, with an attacking skill, a defense up skill, and the skill prep / broken punisher abilities. I would again go with the 5-star elemental because the additional skill will help out tremendously. Daggers, I would go with the 5-star one because the attacking skill helps tremendously. Blade, again, I would go with the 5-star one because the 5-star standard elementals for these ones because the attacking skill. And finally, for sword, sword is a bit of a tough one, but again, I would go with the standard 5-star elemental. It gives you defense up, and it would help out, likely help out a lot. So these are my recommendations and what you should go for. But again, mix and match. Whatever gets you the most damage onto high Mercury will be the best for you to choose. So those are the weapons and my recommendations. Next up will be Wyrmprints. So Wyrmprints recently got an addition where you can now equip 2 of them. With this, that means that high Mercury, it will be the most recent Dragon Trial, Advanced Dragon Trial, released since this change, meaning it will likely be much, much more difficult, like I said earlier in the video. So you're going to need to put a very good Wyrmprint on your second slot. The first slot will be your defensive Great Wyrmprints, as with the other 2 High Dragon Trials. It will likely be needed for this one as well. They cost 500 Azure Insignias and 200 Royal Azure Insignias to get this at a max unbinded version. And it will be your first slot on the Wyrmprints. Now for the second one, it can honestly be anything since it's just additional, but of course you want to maximize your strength that you get with this. So not strength as in skill, strength as in damage. So your DPS, you want to be maxed out using the second Wyrmprint. So the ones I recommend to use, I will offer both non-budget and budget options. Everything I say will be at a max unbinded version. I will not be listing the non-max unbinded version since we do get a fair amount of keys, so you should be able to max unbind your Wyrmprint that you do get. First up would be Resounding Rendition, which grants skill damage plus 25%, HP 70% equals crit rate up by 6%. Valiant Crown, which gives you skill damage plus 25% and strength double buff plus 8%. Heralds of Hinomoto, which gives you skill damage plus 25% and skill haste plus 5%. Levin's Champion, which grants HP 70%, crit rate up plus 8%, and crit damage plus 13%. Chocolatiers is a sort of special one. It's skill prep plus 100%. This can offer creative builds because 100% skill prep allows for defense up buffs and the like. So this is mainly just a creative slot in. Give me your wounded. Recovery potency plus 10% and full HP equals defense plus 20%. This is a good one to survive the opening blast. Next is Dragon and Tamer, which gives the Lance skill damage plus 35% and Shadow Res plus 8%. Shadow Res is not useful in this, but the Lance skill damage plus 35% is a very high amount of skill damage up, so it is something to note. Kung Fu Masters gives Axe crit rate plus 12% and skill damage plus 15%. And there are some other budget options such as Plunder Pals or Hitting the Bucks, which grants skill damage plus 25%. Luis's Hobbies and Take My Hand, which gives recovery potency plus 10%. That's for Lowen. And Astounding Trick is also an option. HP 70% equals strength plus 10%. But this Wyrmprint is risky because you may not be at that 70% or above threshold for most of the battle. We're not sure yet, so that's a risky one. I would recommend Plunder Pals as the budget option for adventurers, or Luis's Hobbies if you're a healer. So those are all the Wyrmprints that I recommend. There are other Wyrmprints, but those are my recommendations. And with that, you should be prepared to take on High Mercury. Thank you so much for watching. If I got anything wrong, please leave a comment down below, or if you have any recommendations, please leave a comment down below. Like I said, let me know how your preparations are going. Let me know if you're ready. Let me know anything you would like in the comment section down below, and good luck.